And we are good. Martin, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with me, all the listeners, all the viewers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks. How are you?
I'm honestly, if I'm being completely forthcoming, I'm a little bit nervous because I don't know if I've ever spoken with someone live who is, what would be the best way to say it? I'm going to argue so polarizing. You truly are. So when I announced that this was going to go on, it was a 50-50 split. I got DMs of people who were absurdly excited. They're like, I cannot wait for this to go down. It's going to be a treasure trove of information. And then on the other side, there was a lot of haters. There was some very way beyond pejorative comments. And it was funny. Let me put it this way. There were some people who referred to you as the most hated man in America. On the other side, there was people referring to you as their wife's boyfriend. So, and it's a 50-50 split. So this is all over the map, man. And I have to say, I think we're going to get into some very, very interesting stuff. And if it's cool with you, obviously, I want to talk about what was going on with your experience with jail/prison, what was going on. You've been on Wall Street, you've been on WallStreetBets, maybe your concept and your ideas, thoughts, opinions on AMC and GME, and kind of where things are going. Does that all sound good to you?
Yeah, no, great. Really happy to have me. I'm really happy you have me here, so I appreciate it very much. And we can talk about whatever you want.
I think we're going to be able to get into some things that could be at minimum eye-opening, especially that intersection of health insurance and Wall Street, and just even some of your experience, because I know you've previously worked at some hedge funds. And this is always a treat because a lot of people who are watching do identify just your average run-of-the-mill retail trader, retail investor. So it's always interesting to be able to pick the brain of people who have kind of seen on the other side of the wall, what's going on behind the closed curtain. But before we get into the Wall Street, talk of just even investing, trading, valuation, short squeezes, I think it's best to get the elephant out of the room. And I think I myself fell victim to completely misunderstanding your story. I think the average person who knows your name, if they haven't done any extra due diligence on what your story is, it's very much assumed that you went to prison and got in trouble with the law because of raising a drug price. And even there, at first, if you Google it, there's this drug Daraprin, which it sounds important. But from there, then I heard that you went to it because you raised the price of insulin, and they were just naming various drugs. So elephant out of the room, obviously, you got caught doing something that you shouldn't have done. What was that whole story?
Yeah, so I went to jail for fraud. I had a hedge fund where I managed clients' money, and those clients thankfully did really well. It is still a crime if you tell any kind of lie or make any misleading statement whatsoever. Most frauds and Ponzi schemes and things like that, they end with everybody crying, everybody broke, with no money left over. I made my investors 3 to 5 times their money, depending on when they invested. No investor lost money. So I'm really proud of that and happy of that. Obviously, it's not a good thing to lie or mislead or do any of that. Paid my debt to society. It's a big, heavy price to pay. I didn't make any money from the hedge fund. So it was really painful personally, but I'm at least proud my clients did well. So, there's a Bloomberg article. I think the title was, "Why is Shkreli going to prison if his clients made money?" It was it's a good question, but it's still wrong to mislead or lie no matter what you do. And I regret the actions I did. And, it's time to move on and grow as a person and do better.
So I think a lot of people listening right now, and potentially if this is the first time hearing that story, right away, you're oh, it's funny because the media painted it as Pharma bro raised the price of drugs, going to prison. And obviously, if you read it, I hope that they explained it didn't really have to do with that. So right there, I think it's kind of the first thing where people are oh, okay, maybe I don't know really what happened here. But if we focus on the thing that got you those negative pejoratives of saying the most hated man in America, I wrote this down. I don't know if you know this, but in 2017, the Lown Institute gave you an award for the worst examples of profiteering and dysfunction in healthcare. So, let's be honest. I've never really won awards in my life, and you won one, but it doesn't sound like the best one to win.
Yeah. Well, I think people have an emotional reaction to healthcare. That's doesn't apply to other goods and services. And there are no laws that make healthcare goods and services any different from any other goods and services in any industry, whether it's tech or consumer products or anything like that. So the laws of economics don't just vanish because it's a healthcare product. And if you go to a doctor and say, you need a brain surgery and it's $1 million brain surgery, it's going to take a lot of the hospital's resources. It's going to be 5 surgeons, 3 nurses, et cetera, you're not going to get the surgery for $1 million just because you want it. At the end of the day, pharmaceuticals sort of get a bad rap, but there is no free service in healthcare in general. There's money in the healthcare system in every single turn of it, and nobody should be surprised that there's money in pharmaceuticals. I think the big thing that I did that was different from others, and I don't regret it, is that I was willing to say that. Whereas I think a lot of people sort of are they're not willing to do that. They want to hide and obscure the fact that this is a $3 trillion industry. And I've never met a physician who works for free. I've never met a nurse who works for free. I've never met a hospital that gives away their healthcare to anyone but the poorest of patients. I've never met a drug company that says, we don't want to sell this drug for profit. We're going to give it away. Every single part of the healthcare business, which is what it is sort of capitalized on by capitalist actors. And actually, I think that's a good thing. I think that's what makes it work. That's why America has the best healthcare in the world, in my eyes. That's why we have the most amount of drug treatments, the most amount of research. The whole world envies our biotechnology industry. There is no biotechnology industry in Europe. There is no biotechnology industry in China. There's a reason we're the best at that. There's a reason that people come from all over the world to go to Memorial Sloan Kettering or the Mayo Clinic or places like that, because America leads in innovation, and it takes money to lead in innovation. We don't cry about it when it comes to Apple. We don't cry about it when it comes to Microsoft and Facebook and Google. Those companies make a lot of money too, and they're very innovative. So when it gets really personal, when we think about pharmaceuticals for some reason, or medicine in general, because we all feel like healthcare is a human right, and it is. But how we provision that right and like how we actually distribute it is something that's complicated. It's difficult, especially in a very big country like America, where you have 300 million people. You have people who are really, really wealthy, and you have people who are very poor. And how do you make sure that everybody sort of gets healthcare? Obviously, the wealthy people take care of themselves, but what do you do about the poor people and the uninsured people and the undocumented people and the people who are just above poverty level? All those are really tough cases. We've tried to solve them, right? Medicaid is for people who have very little income. Medicare is for people who are older. There's a number of, kind of tools and programs to ameliorate, difficulty in healthcare. Again, it's not that easy. But the funny thing I think most people don't know, Matt, is that there are a lot of drugs that are really expensive. There are $1 million drugs. Daraprim is around $50,000. So there are drugs 30, 40 times more expensive than Daraprim. And nobody talks about those. So if I'm the most hated man in America, well, what about the other 40 or 50 drugs more expensive than Daraprim? So again, I don't want to talk too much about the past. I'm ready to move on. I acknowledge mistakes. I think life is about second chances and, forgiveness. And, I've made my share of fuck ups in life. I've made my share of great successes too. I think that Daraprim, I wouldn't call it a fuck up. I think maybe the way I explained it and handled it could have been better. But again, I also think that I tried to explain and handle it really carefully, calmly, in great detail. But I think people want a villain. Like they want that like bad guy. Like, oh yeah, that guy is sort of fun to hate, and I got to admit, it was kind of fun to be that bad guy. Like it was kind of cool to get attention from, all kinds of famous people like Steve Colbert or whatever, and kind of go back and forth with him. And, it's funny because this is the first interview I'm doing publicly, I'm pretty sure, that was pre-scheduled. And I've gotten offers from Good Morning America, Tucker Carlson, some of the biggest media outlets in the country. And this is just much easier because I could do it on webcast. But I think that, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And, if anybody knows the media business and anything like that, I mean, again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but to get a fairly top tier interview, for your sort of show, I think is pretty solid sort of get. I mean, a lot of people I've turned down that are on television have millions of viewers and things like that. So
I truly appreciate it. Before we, I guess, put a pin in this, just to kind of wrap that all up, and I think you kind of glossed over it, and I only know this from really kind of looking into this story, and I just want to clarify to everyone who's listening right now. You use the example of, let's just use tech, whether we're talking about the newest iPhone or NVIDIA's newest processing chip, whatever it is. Capitalism helps really improve quality and drive costs down. And I think what's going to be on a lot of people's minds for that particular point is, yes, but when you're talking about a new iPhone, you don't necessarily need that to survive. While when you're talking about a drug, that could be the difference between surviving and not surviving. And I think I know where you're going to go with the answer. But there's going to be a lot of people who right now they think, okay, this drug is expensive. And you even brought up the example of other ones that are like $50K a month, or the price goes higher and higher and higher. So to me, something crazy is going on with health insurance here. And I don't want to really misspeak and get something wrong, but your drug, when that price went from $1,350 up to $750, were people paying for it out of pocket?
Yeah, I mean, I think every drug company, the biggest fear they have is anybody paying out of pocket. That's just something that no drug company ever wants to have a patient pay out of pocket, because it's obviously it's the scariest thing. I mean, imagine going to a Duane Reade or Walgreens, swiping your prescription, and they bring you up for $25,000 or $5,000 or something like that. It's scary. I mean, it's crazy. And that does happen. And that's why we took our drug out of pharmacy, and put it in a sort of like a private pharmacy, where we made sure a patient would never see a bill, no matter what. So I don't trust CVS and Walgreens to always get it right. Like, some pharmacists would just press the wrong button and ask the patient for 75 grand. So we made sure insurance covered it beforehand, before sending the drug to the patient. If that was taking too long, we would just send the drug to the patient immediately. If there was no insurance, we'd ask them to fill out a form and then send it for free. So like, when you have these high priced drugs, and if you know the market, you know every company that has Vertex, BioMarin, AstraZeneca, Alexion, there's no shortage of drug companies that make a great living for patients and for themselves, on orphan drugs. They're $300,000 drugs. You don't want to bill anybody $300,000. I certainly didn't want to bill anybody that for Daraprim either. You're happy to bill their insurance, but you don't want to bill them personally. So that's why you have this closed distribution hub, where you can iron out all those details with insurance. And again, what people don't understand is this is a really small drug. Like, only a couple thousand people use Daraprim, 2,000 people a year. So it's really like not some like budget breaker, like, oh my God, it's so expensive. Like, the insurance company's like, yeah, whatever, next. They don't even think about it. It's not even a question. Like, it sounds crazy, because if you don't know the industry, it sounds like, oh my God, 18, now it's 750. It's madness. No, the insurance company doesn't give a shit. There's trillions of dollars of healthcare spend. This is a small drug. They care about things like, are people using the right generic for Lipitor? Are people, using an expensive drug when they could be using a generic? That's the kind of stuff. Why is this guy going to see his doctor every week? He should be going every month, at most. Those are the kinds of things that insurance companies worry about. Prices on pharmaceuticals are seldom, especially ones that sell below 100 million, are seldom even thought about. They worry about drugs that sell $1 billion or more. They want to make sure that if you're going for Botox, that they're going to charge you for like half or all of that, because it's not really medically necessary for aesthetic reasons. But if you have a life-saving medicine you need, insurance always covers that. They're never going to say no. And in the edge cases where they do say no, I want people to get the drug. Are you crazy? I mean, why wouldn't I? It doesn't cost us anything to make it. So for us, it's easy to give it away. And in fact, we gave away 1,400 out of those 2,000 patients got our drug for free. So we got paid on 600 people. So when you get paid on only a fraction of your customers, you need to get paid a lot when you get paid. Otherwise, you can't afford to give away medicine at all. And that's what's happened in the past when I've raised prices in other drugs. A lot of it has been because there's just not enough sort of profit to even bother making this medicine. So we've seen big companies say, I'm not going to bother making this medicine. And the 800 people or 1,000 people that need it are just not going to get it at all. If Pfizer or Merck or whomever says, yeah, we're not going to bother with that medicine. We don't care if Matt needs it or Matt's mom needs it or whoever, because, we're Pfizer. We have to worry about our big blockbuster medicines. So people like me buy it. We need to stay in business. So we'll raise the price. And then we can guarantee that every single patient can get it. And there'll be a backup supply. There'll be a patient hub to call if you have a problem, all that stuff that the other company wouldn't provide before. So to me, it's really sort of the criticism comes from people that don't understand the industry. Everybody I talk to in the industry is sort of like, oh, I get this. My company did this once, or whatever the case is. So like, it's easy to like look at this really complicated industry that has a lot of moving parts and make some bold claim about it or have some extreme feeling about it. But when you actually peel back the layers and understand it, it's a lot sort of simpler than it looks at from a trained eye, from an untrained eye. But
I have to admit that it's really interesting.
I'm trying to write in your chat, but
I'm
trying to write in your chat, but I have a 5-minute error. So
this really feels as if it's
I love to respond to some of these people.
This story of it's classic business and Wall Street. But what seems to set this apart is more of like, you kind of alluded to it, of your willingness to lean into that villain role because it was getting some sort of like cultural attention, which I have to, it's definitely interesting. And like, hey, that's social media right now. That's how a lot of the world works. But not necessarily the villain role, but in terms of kind of getting yourself out there and saying, let's just say like really things that can stir things up. I mean, you've only been out of prison for a little bit now, and I saw that you're already calling out Mark Cuban. Can you go a little bit into that? Because it very much intersects with this world of pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, I mean, I know the drug business really well. They don't call me Pharma bro for nothing. I've built a lot of successful drug companies. I've done everything in pharma you could possibly do. I think a lot of people know some of my stories with Retrophin, which is now Travere, or Calabios, or whatever. And many other short sales I've done, longs, you name it. I've been around a while and know the industry really well. So when I saw Mark Cuban kind of self-glorifying over like saving patients money with his pharmacy, I did a little digging and I saw that he was lying. That the drug he said he's saving saves you 99% because he charges $60 and it's normally $3,000. I looked into it because I know that drug well, and I know that it's not $3,000. So I just went to a couple websites and I showed that it's $100. He's not saving you 99%. It sounded like he was a hero. Like, wow, this was $3,000. What a bunch of jerks! That it costs so much. Who can afford that? Thank God Mark Cuban's here charging $60. And all you have to do is go to GoodRx, and it's like $100 from other companies. And that's his best example. Like everything else he sells is the same price or more expensive. But he has one drug where he's like, look at this, it's so amazing. And it's a lie. I mean, so to me, it just made sense to point it out. Like, this guy's not some hero, and he doesn't know much about the drug business at all. Like, the guy's kind of a joke to me. I don't want to get pejorative about him, but like this whole idea of like trying to gain this like publicity over telling an obvious lie. I just didn't want people to have the wool pulled over their eyes and see like, no, this drug isn't $3,000 a month. It's like $100 a month. So your $60 is not a bad savings, but it's not like some amazing thing. It's sort of like a small, pretty modest savings.
Does that type of thing in a general sense happen often in the insurance pharmaceutical industry? Like a lot of like outlandish overstatements or understatements? Or is it par for the course, or is it more of a rarity?
I would say it's a rarity because that's what surprised me. I was like, dude, you're not charging, nobody's paying $3,000 a month for that medicine. It's called Gleevec. And like, he got so much press over it. Like, wow, you saved my life, Mark Cuban. I'm like, no, nobody's life got saved here. What are you talking about? Like, that's not at all how it works. So I was just a little surprised to see that. Again, he needs to promote his company. He needs to get some attention. That's cool. Do your thing, but you got to make honest and truthful claims. Like, I went to jail for making false claims. Like, you could arguably go to jail just for that right away.
Oh, okay.
If somebody was mad enough at you, that's prison time right there.
That's actually pretty crazy. I definitely appreciate the clarification. Now, in more of a general sense, like, yes, you know a lot about pharmaceuticals, but also it's not hard to realize that you've actually had a pretty decently long career just in the world of Wall Street, maybe through the eyes of biotech and pharmaceuticals. But in general, and this is what I really want to get into, because I think it could enlighten some people, especially just the person who doesn't really know much about Wall Street. Could you just tell us like kind of the resume, quick overview of where you've been on Wall Street, kind of what you've done, and then maybe we'll kind of get into some of the details of where, not necessarily malpractice, but just kind of the craziness, because there's a lot of quote unquote apes watching right now who are very interested in market structure, market makers, short squeezes, where Wall Street goes wrong. And right now, especially because of the pandemic, there's been a renewed interest in, let's refer to it as the average Joe, of what's actually happening in Wall Street.
Yeah, so I'm from New York City. I was born in Brooklyn to an immigrant family. My parents came to this country not speaking English too well, looking for kind of like odd jobs and stuff like that. We were a lower middle class family. I ended up working at a hedge fund at 16. So I right around my 17th birthday, just before I started working at Jim Cramer's hedge fund. So back before Mad Money and way back before CNBC, Jim was a hedge fund guy, and he worked in the 80s and 90s. And he was a really solid investor, actually. He made about 21, 23, I forget exactly, percent per annum over the course of his hedge fund's life. That's after fees. So it's pretty good. And I started there in 2000. He actually retired in late 2000. So he retired with one of the best hedge fund track records. He had made a lot of money, and basically decided to call it quits at a relatively young age. I think he was in his 40s when he did. And so I was just working there as an office worker. I didn't do anything special. And then I started following biotech stocks, and I made some of my first biotech investments and stuff like that. And I really got involved in following biotech. I went to college at night and on weekends, and occasionally once or twice during the day. But I worked around the clock basically from early at dawn to midnight. We're either going to school or working at the fund and everything in between. And then I ended up joining a large hedge fund that's in the so-called Tiger family. That was a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. I followed software and healthcare there. Ended up starting my own hedge fund, and then I ended up starting some drug companies that did very, very well. So my hedge fund career is interesting because I got to learn a lot, but I never really hit home runs in hedge funds. After hedge funds, I started trading really, really well, which was interesting because when you have outside money, like it's very hard because they want to see you make money every month. And the pressure of that is like can kind of drive you crazy. Trading's hard enough as it is without outside pressure. And you have like kind of someone looking over your shoulder, like, oh, how do you do this month? And they can take their money out if you didn't do well. So that's really frustrating. So as soon as I was out, of the hedge fund game, I started making a fortune in just trading my own personal account. And certainly being an entrepreneur in pharmaceuticals also made me a lot of money. So, I did really, really well way before jacking up the price, just so anybody in chat wants to, say something stupid. I was already worth close to $100 million before I raised the price of anything. So for me, after I raised the price of Daraprim, just so you know, I didn't get $1 salary from Daraprim. I didn't get $1 bonuses, not one share of stock. Daraprim has not made me personally 1 cent. So if you think I'm greedy or something like that, you should also look at the millions of dollars of donations I made. You should also look that I helped get a kid in Venezuela at my own cost, at my own time, medicine in a war-torn, fucked up country. I paid for people to travel across mountains to get this kid drug because I read an article that he couldn't get his medicine. So I posted my phone number on the internet. So anybody who couldn't afford Daraprim, of which, by the way, there wasn't anybody, call me. One guy called me, but by the time I called him back, he already got the drug for free from our company. So you can kiss my ass if you don't believe me, but I don't have a problem sleeping at night. Everybody that knows me personally likes me. I'm not like, it's easy to make fun of somebody or get like the wrong impression, but it doesn't bother me at all. Like all that matters to me is my friends, my family, the people around me. They understand me and like me. If I've started to disappoint my family or my brother or my close friends, then I would feel bad. But disappointing some random person on the internet doesn't worry about me. Doesn't worry me at all, I should say.
I want to quickly interject here. I actually first learned of you, I must have been early in college. And I knew of you, not even in the world of pharmaceuticals, but for the people who don't know, you would just randomly post how to fundamentally value a company. I would just not go to class in college, and you just had videos up there of just random breakdowns. I think you also did some science ones. That wasn't particularly my interest, but you were here's how I would value companies. And you just put these videos out, which I thought was wild. And we could get more into that, but just to quickly bring this back to the world of Wall Street. So you have a career on Wall Street. You also had it particularly through pharmaceutical companies. With that, you've had to see some shit. You've had to see some crazy things. Because right now, obviously, GME went absolutely haywire in January of 2021. Right there, AMC was discussed, but then that one went haywire in June of 2021. And more recently, we're seeing blow-ups at the London Metal Exchange with nickel. And that's all happened when me and a lot of these other people are actively focused, and we're talking about a 1.5-year time period. So with yours, maybe even when there was less regulation, I'm just kind of assuming you've had to see even crazier shit.
Yeah, no, I've seen it all to some extent. I've done it all too. I mean, I've had some embarrassing moments myself where I've done some crazy stuff. So, there's no doubt that, if you look back at the history of the market, people have tried to corner stocks from over 100 years. And there's a fantastic book called The Great Game by John Steele Gordon. And I actually think, I have nothing to do. I don't know the author. I have nothing to do with the book, but it could be a good read for some apes. because and GME and anybody else that is interested in the stock market, because it's a great history of Wall Street and how it first started and goes all the way back to the 1700s. So anyway, the point of the book, though, is that corners, which are basically defined as when a bunch of people, whether it's one person or 4 million people, try to buy all the shares up of the stock, basically, and force it to go up, and basically try to cause mayhem. And by doing that, the goal isn't so much to acquire the company. The goal is more to sort of force the stock to go up. So there's another way to acquire a whole business, which I've done many, many times, which is you go to the company and you negotiate a merger and you sort of say, shake hands and say, all right, I'm going to buy out your company for, and you try to, as the buyer, you're actually trying to get the lowest price possible, right? Because you don't want to overpay. And you have to pay more than the market rate, but you don't, like Elon Musk, he didn't offer $200 a share for Twitter. It was in the 30s. He said, okay, I'll buy it for 40 something. And they shook hands on a deal and they said, okay. But in a corner, buyers are trying to sort of force the stock up, right? And which is a really weird thing. And it's a very different sort of thing from what's normal. And it's kind of like, well, it was certainly made illegal. And it's sort of nefarious because what you're hoping to do is trap kind of short sellers and trap other people and force the stock to go up and up and up. And again, corners have been around for a long time. And the SEC, after seeing a lot of corners and other kind of like problems in the stock market, the SEC was created. And they came out with a bunch of laws that said, you can't do this. It causes too much mayhem. So what they said is that anytime you buy more than 5% of a company, you have to tell the world that you bought 5% of the company. You have to tell us and you got to list it publicly. And obviously that's good because let's say you started buying 5% of a company and you crossed from 4% to 5%. Now you got to notify everybody and say, hey, Kohrs Capital, we bought 5% of this stock, just so everybody knows. And from now on, you actually have to file much more regularly. So like if you start selling, you have to show everybody. Whereas in the past, you can kind of do a corner. And then when everybody else jumps in, you start to sell and nobody can notice. You just kind of like keep it quiet. That's sort of the bad thing about corners, amongst other things. So anyway, these rules have been around for a long time. And then people started evading those rules. In the 80s, there was a book called Den of Thieves, which is probably one of the best books about Wall Street ever written, by James Stewart. And it talks about Ivan Bowski and Michael Milken and others from that era. Milken ended up going to prison, one of the billionaire prisoners, and recently got a pardon from Donald Trump. But Milken did 2 years in prison and again, made even more money after prison. But a lot of these guys decided that they didn't want to follow the SEC's rule. And they just basically said, well, I'll try to put some of the stock in this entity. And, if you buy Matt, you buy 4.9%, Matt, and I buy 4.9%, we actually will control 9.9% together. So let's do that. And we won't have to file with the SEC technically. And of course, the SEC got wise to this and they said, hold on, that's illegal too. And nobody should do this. And then the Hunt brothers tried to buy all the silver in the world, which was, so there's always these schemes that people come up with, like, how do we force the market to go up? Like, how do we crack and hack the stock market? And long story short, they never work, by the way. They all fail at the end because I think as the price goes up, some of the people that bought the so-called diamond hands, they're like, I don't know, at 200 to 300, that's what happened to GameStop, right? Clearly somebody sold, right? The investors who bought it for or 20, maybe it was Roaring Kitty, maybe it was somebody else. I don't know the situation. I don't even know who Roaring Kitty is. But the point is, like, the people who got in at 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever, at 200, you're looking around your apartment, you're saying, gee, I could upgrade this place. You're looking at your car and you're saying, maybe I should buy that new car. I don't need GameStop at 200. Maybe it'll go back down to 20. I got to lock in some of my gains. And that's what happens. So, I think it's fairly common for that kind of behavior. And it's just human behavior. Like, nobody's going to let a stock go up to 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 if, like, there's humans involved, because humans are going to say, hey man, I really like GameStop. I really love this community, but I really need to pay off my house. And that's more important to me. Or I really need to pay for this operation. I really need to pay for whatever. And anytime you have even one person that does that, as you may know, the stock market's based on last sale. It's not based on how many people have strong hands. It's based on the last trade. And if one trade happens where somebody says, I'm out, and they sell the stock and it drops, then the whole sort of thing comes to an end. So that's why you can't really corner a stock easily. And that's why in the history of the stock market, you can't point to one successful corner. that's actually stayed up and worked. So Nelson, the Hunt brothers, cornered all the silver, and then it was working, and they were actually the richest people in the world at the time. They were richer than anybody. They were like the Bill Gates of the time, or the Elon Musk of the time. And then 2 years later, they filed for bankruptcy because it's hard to like sustain the price of something artificially. They had a reason they liked silver, don't get me wrong, but they were artificially propping it by causing this like fake buying, and then it went to zero. It didn't go to zero, of course, silver's still around, but their net worth went to zero. They filed for bankruptcy. So margin caused them to file for bankruptcy, all kinds of stuff like that. But also the rules changed, right? The Fed changed the rules. And I know a lot of people with GameStop and AMC feel like there's this conspiracy, there's a bunch of stuff going on where the market structure has been changed or whatever to make it a less fair playing field or whatever. And we can talk about that if you want, but basically, I don't think that's the case. But it doesn't mean AMC isn't a good buy. It could very well be a really good buy. So we have to just sort of look at it a different way, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I definitely want to push back a little bit there. So it sounds like with all of these stories, whether we're talking about tulips 400 years ago, more recently silver, more recently silver, or the Doge and SHIB phenomena, it seems like each one is characterized by important different nuances, like kind of similar, but the nuances are really what sets it apart.
It's always a little different.
Yeah. And I think the one that of why a lot of, let's just say the average retail trader investor was more than willing to like this diamond hand concept and really dig their heels into the ground at first. I think what you were referring to of just the psychology of like behavioral finance of like, hey, I have bills to pay. This is a lot of money. I just hit like buttons on my phone and I somehow am up X amount of money. I think what happened this time around, my
family is way more important to me than any allegiance to any community. Like my brother needs $100,000 and I made $100,000 in AMC. I'm sorry, AMC, I'm out. I need to help my brother,
And I think,
and I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to be like, no, my brother needs an operation, but I'm diamond hands. I'm not selling. Sorry, buddy. You're dead. What? Nobody's doing that.
I definitely agree with you there. I'm just like, hey, obviously bills come, especially with the time between the pandemic and now with inflation and everything that's crazy. But I think, and I don't know really how much you studied this particular saga, this particular storyline, but something on January 28th of 2021, so many people were on Robinhood because that was the predominant brokerage, and they were sitting around in the pandemic and they're like, I'm trying to make some money. So everyone, I picture it, they're just in their sweatpants on their couch, and they felt like they had a winning trade. And I think the nuance that sets this one apart of why people are still super, super, in my opinion, rightfully angry is they just took away the buy button. So before with your example of like, hey, it went up to 2 and went up to 300, obviously someone sold. I feel like there's an outstanding, I guess, opinion from the community that the game was kind of fucked up. And maybe the best way I could explain it is the community feels as if they were at the roulette wheel. They bet on green hit, and then the pit boss said, right, we actually don't have the money to pay, like, better luck next time. So those rare circumstances that you're saying it rarely works out. It's just like, well, this one, it seemed like it was going to work out. And then
that's really interesting.
Basic things stepped in.
In 2010, there was a prime brokerage called MF Global. Do you remember this at all?
I do not know.
MF Global was run by a guy named John Kohrs, who I believe was the senator for New Jersey, and he was an old Goldman Sachs guy. And MF Global was a futures trading firm. And my friend had a bunch of money there. He was a hedge fund, and he had all his money in MF Global. Well, John Kohrs illegally took money, never went to jail, by the way, never even got charged. Kohrs took money from MF Global's customers, which you can't do. And he decided to go ahead and make a big, crazy YOLO. And now that's a YOLO. I mean, when you're the CEO and it's your customers' money, you're not supposed to do this. And you can do this in stocks, prime brokerage and being at a big bank, but you cannot do this in futures. It's specifically forbidden. Okay. Your futures account, everyone's money has to be segregated. He fucking did it anyway. He YOLO'd. And guess what? He was wrong, because that's what happens with fate sometimes. So you YOLO at the wrong time, fate comes and laughs at you and says, ha, good try. And so what ended up happening was MF Global froze everybody's money. And like, they were like, what happened? Like, I thought my money was segregated. I thought I was okay. And all these professionals, hedge funds, and smaller people too, but mostly hedge funds, I have $100 million in MF Global. I don't know if I'm ever going to get it back. It felt like Lehman Brothers and things like that. And that's why you diversify your brokerages. If you have all of your money in one brokerage firm, I think you're basically saying, I believe in this brokerage firm. I've done my research on this brokerage firm. I think this brokerage firm is going to succeed. Well, how do you know? I don't know. In 2008, when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, hedge funds who had their money all in Lehman Brothers, they learned the risk of diversification. Like, you have to have some money at Goldman. You have to have some money at JP Morgan. You have to have some money. If one of them fails, you'll survive. If all of your money is in Lehman and Lehman goes bankrupt, you're toast. Same thing with Robinhood, right? If you have all of your money in Robinhood and you're not sure Robinhood is like a legitimate operation and they're going to treat their customers legitimately, then why would you have all your money in Robinhood? Put half of it in Interactive Brokers. Put half of it in E-Trade. Like, you asked for it. I hate to say it. Like, I know truth hurts, but like, you got every dollar you have in Robinhood and Robinhood does something squirrely. Sorry, like nobody's perfect.
And I think with that,
Interactive Brokers don't have any issues with this stuff. Interactive Brokers is better anyway. Why the fuck are people on Robinhood? It's just a better brokerage trading app anyway.
Well, I think with that, it's being victim of not knowing what you don't know. I think right now, a year and a half later, people are starting to understand, and that's how it happened. They're like, all I see on the news is I could trade for free. I never traded before because I was told Wall Street isn't for people like me. I don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. And then they got inundated with all these commercials. Trade for free, it's for everyone. And at one point, Robinhood had out the statistics of what was kind of happening then. And there were so many accounts that were sub 6 months, sub 1 year, sub $5,000. Right. As in, it was so many new people who I guess it's one of those things, they just trusted the system because they didn't even know what questions to ask. And then after that,
it reminds me of when some hipster moves to Brooklyn and roams around the wrong neighborhood and learns how tough Brooklyn can be. So
it's sorry,
like 6 months.
Yeah.
You just arrived at Brooklyn. You think it's a great neighborhood. You walk down the wrong corner and you get bugged. Hey man, welcome to Brooklyn. Now you know better.
But I think because of that, and like from there, then it led, okay, they took away the buy button. Then people said, how could they do that? And then they started to learn about the DTCC. And they're like, wait, none of my orders are going to lit exchanges. They're all going to this market maker. Then Ken Griffin was talking to Congress about it. And they're like, wait, what the fuck do you mean our orders aren't going? So it became one of those scenarios where truly they pulled on a thread and it just completely come unwound. And then people got pissed at Robin, so they went to Webull. Then they learned about payment for order flow, and now they're going to things such as Interactive Brokers, where they're starting to realize you have to pay for transparency. And then from there, there's a huge uproar against market makers such as Citadel and Virtu, just because, and even Gary Gensler, like conflicts of interest when like, okay, we're not really having open competition. And I think it's one of those things where I understand what you're saying. Don't go down the wrong neighborhood in Brooklyn. Maybe do a little bit of research beforehand, especially with your hard-earned money. But then I think there's also apparently a misappropriated trust in our governing body, the SEC, and government, that like when we're doing these types of things, they're like, well, if the SEC is supposed to be looking at them, I think they're kind of taking it with maybe too many grains of salt that we can somehow trust in it. Like, do you see that?
Not really, man. I mean, I think that like at the end of the day, if you put your money in a brokerage firm and you're ready to speculate on stocks, you kind of have to be prepared for anything. And if you're all in on one stock and something bad happens, like you already were taking a massive risk. So you want to tell me that I should feel bad for somebody that they put their money in a risky brokerage. They bought a risky stock and all of a sudden something bad happens. Like, I'm sorry, but like that's the stock market. Like if you want it to be, you want free commissions and you want no payment for order flow and you want like, things cost money. At the end of the day, like if you really want all that stuff, go to a traditional brokerage. Go to a place that will promise you there's no payment for order flow. Go to a place where, you can certificate your shares and just buy old school, paper certificates. I mean, at the end of the day, like, and don't put all your money in one stock. I mean, that's the number one thing. Have some cash on the side. So if the stock does drop, you have more cash to buy and have multiple brokerages. Like this isn't the first time this has happened. Is my point with the MF Global, with Lehman Brothers, with banks from way back when, like, banks fail, brokerages fail. If this is the first time you're learning that, okay, it's the first time. Now you're older, now you're a little wiser, you got a little gray hair like I have, and you're gonna figure it out. But if it's not your first time, shame on you, because you should know that brokerages, you should have multiple brokerage accounts just in case. Just in case borrow rate's different on a different broker, interest rate's different on a different broker. They cancel trading. They have financial difficulties. There's 100 reasons why. Just have two brokerage accounts. It takes 5 minutes to sign up. And again, you might learn something on Interactive that you don't have on Robinhood or vice versa. Like, it's pretty simple. Fidelity, Fidelity didn't have any problems with this, did they? I didn't hear anything in the news. They let you buy GameStop. Interactive Brokers will let you buy GameStop. Morgan Stanley will let you buy GameStop with E-Trade. Like, but if you just do Robinhood and Webull, like, those are the same company, basically. I mean, they're obviously different companies, but they have the same business model. They're clones of each other. So, like, you have to have a legitimate brokerage firm. Robinhood, to most people in the real world, is not a legitimate brokerage firm. They don't make money. They're brand new. They're pretty weird looking relative to other brokerage firms. Like, most brokerage firms are like TD Ameritrade, very stodgy, log in, and that's it. Charles Schwab, and you can open a brokerage firm, those places with $2,000, $5,000. Like, you don't need $1 million to trade at some of these places. So to me, I think, like, I'm not going to cry for anybody that went all in YOLO on some weird stock they just heard about on WallStreetBets with some weird brokerage, and then something went left. I mean, I would feel more outraged if JP Morgan said, yeah, you can't buy GameStop with JP Morgan or E-Trade or like one of these more established bigger players. I don't think that's what happened. Again, I'm not fully informed. My understanding is the problem really happened at Robinhood.
Yeah, it was not all broke. And that's a question I commonly get of like, well, hang on, if they took away the buy button, like, who was buying it as people were selling it? And the answer is like, they kind of extrapolated. They thought the issues at Robinhood were you're right to say things like Interactive Brokers, like, and obviously that's run by the OG Thomas Petterfee. Things were fine there. But coming back really to what you were saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. The reason why people pay commissions on certain brokerages is because you typically are paying for not only transparency, but a bit more security. With all of that, though, I see what you're saying, and coming back to like that Brooklyn metaphor. But at this, like, do you think any of the onus is on the SEC for even allowing Robinhood to be positioned the way it was? Like, isn't that why we have this regulatory body?
Yeah, so they're regulators of some things. They're not regulators of everything, because finance is an SRO. It's a self-regulating organization with FINRA. So the member firms of FINRA regulate themselves. And that, well, again, you could argue it shouldn't be the case. I think that the SEC does not regulate everything in securities, and there's too much. Like, they trust the brokerage firms to do it themselves, and you can see that the brokerage firms don't always get it right, especially when there's an unusual anomaly in the stock market, which is what GME was. Now, stocks go up all the time. There are unusual anomalies at other points in time, like in my industry, biotech. The stock can go from 10 to 100 after they announce a clinical trial result. Nobody cries, and everything works out fine. To me, like, again, I'm interested in all this stuff, but at the same time, like, I have to ask myself, my core competency as an investor, my job is to make money every year for myself and my family, right? Everything else, I really don't care about. So I try to find the stocks that I think are going to go up. I try to find the stocks and avoid or short the stocks I think are going to go down. And that's my job. And I don't have any interest in like regulating the trading world. I don't have any interest in like what the SEC does or FINRA does. Like, that's up to them, man. My job is just to worry about my portfolio and make my P&L go up with good trades and good investments. So if you think GME is a good trade or a good investment, buy it and hold it and wait and see what happens. If you don't think it's a good investment, don't buy it and don't hold it. See what happens. Same thing with AMC, same thing with GameStop or any other stock. Like, to me, to obsess over the details of the market structure, it's a waste of time. Like, why would I do that? Like, can I change the market structure myself? No, I can't. Like, I'm just a dude. Can the average retail person change the market structure? Probably not either. Like, can you get a senator interested in this kind of thing? Maybe, maybe not. But like, what are you trying to do? At the end of the day, to me, like, being an advocate about, fairness in the markets is like a fool's errand. Like, I don't care about that enough. Like, I care about, I need to make 20% this year, not 10%. I need to make 50% this year instead of 20%. That's what I should spend my energy. I have finite amount of time and energy to work on investments, right? I want to find the best stock and buy that stock. I want to find the worst stock and short that stock. Everything else that takes away from that, to me, is a waste of time. So we can talk about this all we want, but is it going to really change anything? And are we wasting our time when we can be looking at another chart, another 10Q, another 10K? Like, that's our day job. And that's what like the average investor, I think, does, because I think the average great investor does, because like, what are we going to tell the DTC to change the way they work? Like, who cares? Like, it's not my worry. Like, maybe something crazy happened with these stocks in Robinhood. Maybe something didn't. Again, you probably see my perspective that, well, other brokerage firms survived. Like, nobody stopped you from buying GameStop and another brokerage firm. So to me, like, I don't think that's true. But even assuming it's true, what gain do we get from talking about it? Like, we should talk about how some biotech stock could be, and like Antilia could be a 5x. Like, that's exciting. Like, you might 5x your money buying Antilia. It's a big biotech company. A lot of people know about it. I'm not like touting it or anything, but that's an interesting thought to examine and see if that's true. Maybe we should buy that stock, maybe not. I don't know. I have to do more research. But that is at least a lot more exciting than like, oh, what happened on the day of January 6th, 2022 at DTC? Like, who cares? Like, I'm here to make money. Like, I don't care about what happened.
Yeah, so I think with that, and I'll do my best to articulate, and this is one of those things that I think everyone who identifies as an ape, it's just a myriad of different opinions. And I think what it more so is you're looking at it very quantitatively, very black and white, very much, did I make a good trade, a bad trade? Did I make money? Did I not make money? Your goal is to make money. And I think with this...
Yeah, what's your goal?
I think with this one, it's become, particularly if you're looking at it the lens of GME, then also it did morph to include AMC. It was through the lens, and it just became this cultural wildfire. And I almost would argue that GME and AMC became a vehicle for like the newest age groups, like Occupy Wall Street. It became like a digital Occupy Wall Street because the shitstorm that happened was...
Yeah, I agree.
Financial situation per person on average was awesome. They were locked up. I think there was a desire for a sense of community when everyone was shut in because of the pandemic. And then the story started to go of like, you could buy a little piece and fuck over hedge funds, the people who seem to be doing well. Whether that's true or not, that was how it was in the media. Like, hedge funds could get screwed over. And then obviously Melvin became like kind of the poster boy of like how that whole scenario went. But and I saw that you were trying to do some research on AMC and GME, and even that you were looking at the fundamentals of it because it sounds like very much that's how you care about stocks. But with this one, living it in real time now for a year and a half, fundamentals took the back seat, and it was the story that just captivated truly America and parts of the other world. Of like, it was the story of the David and Goliath. It was literally the Wall Street story of David and Goliath. And that's what it was. It's like, dude, all these Davids like got together and then they themselves became one giant Goliath. So I know that's kind of confusing because it's more of a narrative than a common way to engage in the market. But that's also inherently why I think it worked out, because no one thought it was going to fucking happen like that. Like there's not many times where literally millions of people get in on this wildfire of a narrative opposed to like, oh, do I think AMC is a good bounce back play? Do I think GME is going to properly pivot into crypto? Like that type of thing. It's just so wild. And I think that's why it took everyone off guard, because they're like, it was just something so far out of left field. And then from there, with like the analogy of betting on zero, they got it right, then they didn't pay. And now people are just looking into everything else. But with it, I see what you're saying of like an individual person. Like if I sit here, if you and I just talk about it and we're like, dude, fuck pattern day trading, fuck payment for order flow, the improper reporting of FTDs or political insider trading, one person or two people not going to get it. But this did expand so much that now you do have petitions that are like crossing like hundreds of thousands of signatures, and like people shit posting Gary Gensler every single day. It's almost kind of hard, in my opinion, to see. They definitely know what's going on. I don't know if it's going to prompt them to give action, because to my understanding, it also gets super political of like, okay, even if one guy wants something, what's going else in the either FINRA or the SEC and all those stuff, basically a functioning cabal. It'll be wild to see how it plays out. I think it's hard to have a playbook because this type of thing with so many people engaging in it, and especially with the like vast amount of social media adoption, I don't think there's a playbook. Like, I don't think there's anything to be like, it could end this way, but it's far, far from your typical, is this company overvalued or undervalued? I feel like I said before, I think you could take the fundamental breakdown, throw it in the back street, and you're just letting literally an ape out of the zoo drive the car.
In the long run, the fundamentals matter. And I'm starting to get more constructive, basically bullish, on AMC, probably less so GME, but more AMC because of what you're saying, what you just said. And I think there's a new framework that you can look at AMC as a collectible instead of a stock. Like you can look at it as like a club, yes. Which is kind of a bizarre way to look at a company, but
some would call it a cult.
Yeah, and I'm typing in your chat. If you saw me distracted there, I was just pulling out my credit card to get a subscriber, which I suggest everybody does the same. So anyway, you gotta cut me in on that payment for order flow right there. But And I don't know Ken Griffin, by the way. I never met him. So anyway, I think that like if you look at this company as not just a business, but also kind of this like, you might say cult, but I would say kind of club. Or like almost like the shares are NFTs. Like it's kind of an interesting way to look at it. It's a brand new way to look at it. And I never thought of a company that way, but clearly something's changing in the stock market where at least for a couple of companies, there's this like deep interest in kind of like having this diverse and large retail investor base. And I think that that's cool. It's a good thing. Like I said, I have no agenda. If AMC is going to go up, I'm going to buy AMC. If I think it's going to go down, I'm going to short. That's it. I don't have a preconceived notion. But after talking last night for way too many hours to both bulls and bears, I kind of like this concept of like this community sort of permanently making this company kind of theirs. Now, that normally doesn't work for a host of reasons, but I still am attracted to it. And I do think that AMC has a kind of irreplaceable asset in the sense that they have half of the damn movie theaters in the country. GameStop doesn't really have a replaceable asset yet. Irreplaceable is what I meant. GameStop is kind of replaceable. A lot of people like video games. They go to game stores and they're shifting their business model and they have a really smart management team. But AMC kind of has like, no matter how much money they make or lose, which is very important to me fundamentally, there's still like this really valuable core asset that someday they'll monetize. As you may know, in Silicon Valley, when you have a new website, all that matters is your users, because you know that you can monetize users someday later by showing them ads or doing whatever, making them sign up for premium subscriptions. There's always a way to monetize, but the key is to get the users. And AMC has half the movie theaters in the country. So at the end of the day, like movies aren't going away. Even if they have a tough year or they had like they did in 18 and 19, eventually they're going to figure out a way to like extract revenue and earnings out of the production companies. So I think, AMC is probably more interesting. And I like the kind of semi-psychotic kind of like ape culture, it's a little too conspiratorial. I just think like all that shit is getting in the way of us making money, not helping us. But if it provides like that, like ape, energy that, like you think you're up against Ken Griffin or something like that, then God bless you. But like, to me, that doesn't get me going. What gets me going is revenue, earnings, stuff like that. So I might buy the stock. I really might and I really never thought that I would, because all the pros kind of shit on it and make fun of it. And as I was listening, I'm like, man, these pros they're just closing their ears like this. And it's like, what about the fact that movie theaters aren't going away? That's probably the best point of all. Like, GameStop can go away. Like, people don't need to buy games from GameStop, but every teenager in the country needs to go to the movies, and every adult too. So, that's just going to be there forever. Now, is it worth 10 billion? Is it worth 5 billion? We got to figure that out too. But then you add in kind of the ape thing, and what does that mean? And it means something. I don't know if it means a lot. I have to figure that part out, but it definitely could mean something. So it's not a normal stock. That's for freaking sure.
Exactly.
So
exactly. And I think
it's kind of interesting.
That's exactly why I took people like just off guard, because it was so common before when you said you're referring to market cap, which is so important for everyone to understand, like what is market cap? That's the value of the company. And value was most linked to fundamental value. And I would argue now that equation has just gotten slightly more complicated, where value is now fundamental value plus community value. And that's the thing that like I think most people are like, hang on, this is the P&E, here's their sales, their revenue. NFTs. Yeah, that's exactly the point. It's like, okay, so you're getting into this weird world where there's a whole new age of trading and investing, and it's just like that community. And the thing you said, treat it, each share is more of like a collection, like it's your ticket into the community. And I think that just has not happened before. And they're like, oh, whoa. And it's one of these things that I think it obviously just need to be really delved into. And it's more of a crowd psychology type of a thing. Yeah. And there's
only one company where it kind of has happened before.
What would that be?
Do you know?
Tesla?
Well, he's got a big convention every year.
Oh, Berkshire Hathaway.
Tesla a little bit too, but yeah, Berkshire Hathaway, man. People feel like they're part of a family when they buy that stock. You know, they want to give it, pass it down to their descendants. Like it's a really big deal for them. So it's kind of cool to see it happen again.
I wonder if that's actually how it goes. Like if it was first Warren, then Elon, and now kind of AMC of just because like they all trade at huge multiples, but people, it's a narrative. People like the narrative. They're not just like poring over like the cash flow and the income statement and that type. Obviously, it's important, but there's something else in there. And I think that's one of the biggest things that traditional financial media doesn't really get, because they're like, it's overvalued, it's overvalued, it's overvalued. But then it comes to a very philosophical debate of like, what's value? Like sometimes a piece of art is whatever, 50 million. But then if I go finger paint, like my girlfriend doesn't even like it. So there's a huge just difference in value there. And I think that's what it is. And right now people are adding a premium for community. And it just so happens that AMC is the symbolic vessel of that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I have some more research to do, but I do think like there are private equity firms that'll buy out companies because they're not making money right now, but they will make money in the future. And AMC has that potential because they have that structural kind of like cemented situation where they have, all that capacity for movies. They need to negotiate harder with Disney and stuff like that. I think it's all about Q2. So if they can print a good number in Q2, the stock could easily double. But they have to print a good number. And that's, they should know today how their quarter went, right? Today's the last day of the quarter. So we'll see how that goes.
Coming back, you made up a really good point of tech and San Francisco. And that's kind of just a world that I like originally started in, of just your user base. And I think you're spot on with that, because I'm not sure how much you were following the deal, but recently AMC did have and announced an equity ownership in a mining company. I believe it was gold, but they're silver and that type of stuff. And the proof is right there, because on the announcement, the next day, hundreds of thousands of people just bought it. And it actually got to the point that Adam Aron was supposed to go on with Jim Cramer and CNBC, and he had to not do it because legally advised not to, because it would have just been like, I guess, too much going haywire at once. But what you brought up is exactly true, a monetizable user base. And then later, when he finally came on with CNBC, they point blank asked him, they're like, is this now AMC's new business plan, is to like use the usership base? And Adam Aron, the CEO of the company, flat out just said yes. And we know he has like 100 million on the sideline now, but like that's what it is. It's becoming a wildly different play than just watching movie theaters. And hey, like if he's keeping the party going, he's keeping it going. So like someone's coming up with some good ideas, but I think you were like spot on with that, like kind of commentary just coming out like a couple weeks, just paying attention to the like whole narrative now.
Yeah. So, again, I think Q2 is still what matters. Like I think consensus says that AMC is going to be profitable in Q2. And that's a big step, obviously, after years of losses to actually have profits. Now you can talk about mutual fund or hedge fund like Fidelity or whatever, start to buy the stock and say, hold on a second, I didn't know these guys are profitable. As soon as that number comes out, if they had a good quarter, I think the stock could really be off to the races. It's obviously kind of been a tough stock to own in the last 6-12 months.
Yep, we lost you for a quick second there. Is your video buffering?
Nope, I had another call. Is that all right? Sorry about that.
Oh, all good. So moving on to the next thing, in general, there are a lot of new traders and investors. I think there's two ways we could take this. One, like, do you have any legitimate, more of like, hey, read this book, this is a good source, should you be doing options, crypto? Like if someone's like, I want a career in trading, like that's what I want to do, what would be your recommendation for them to get started? But then on the other side of it, just where I know you from like years and years ago, is more of an OG Wall Street bet. So if we want to talk a little bit about that culture and just degenerate, because I find myself more on that side. Like, of course, I have some Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I have like my stocks for the long term. But day to day, like, I just get my rocks off on doing degenerate shit. So more than happy to get into that.
Yeah, so if you want to be a trader for a living, it's obviously pretty hard. Not many people can do that. There's a really great book called Trading to Win that's about trading psychology. And it's between that and another book called Market Wizards. Those are probably the two best books, in my opinion, about trading. Trading is like just a psychological nightmare. Like, it's so hard to do. Your mentality controls your P&L in many ways, and you have to sort of fight that and understand that and come to grips with it, which is really, really difficult for almost anybody, because at the end of the day, we're humans, and we get pumped up when our profit goes up. We get upset when our profit goes down. And it's really like a challenge to like stay calm in that kind of environment. And so it's pretty tricky. So those are two decent books. In terms of degen stuff, again, like to me, like YOLO and degen, all that stuff is just like I'm not sure if it's a way to say like reckless. It's like a nicer way to say reckless. And like, I don't like reckless. Like I've been reckless before. It's cost me a lot of money. It cost me some time in prison. Like reckless is not healthy. Reckless does not make you the money in the long run. Reckless is entertaining. It's addicting. Like those are bad things though. It's exciting for other people to watch people be reckless.
You're
like,
crushing my heart right now, man.
Yeah. Like and by the way, it doesn't mean that I'm not reckless from time to time. I am. When I do get reckless though, I really want to be right and be sure, because otherwise I can get in trouble. I mean, who wants to YOLO, say you only live once, but your portfolio stays with you till you're dead, right? Like, you if you have 500 grand and you're like, okay, YOLO, I'm going all in, and then you go to zero, like, okay, well, what the fuck did I just do? Like I'm 30 years old. Like I still have to live with this fucking zero for the next, years and years. Like, so it's not a good thing to just lose all your money. Like that's loss porn is like, you don't want to be the star of a loss porn,
All right. What if I pitch you this trading idea? What if you're degenerate and it's not like, you're not going for zero, but like, what if you feel like by karma, you're just inordinately lucky? Because that's my investing thesis. People are like, wait, why are you trading this? Why are you doing that? I just feel like I'm lucky. Like that's 100% the way I'm going to go, is I just feel like for whatever reason, like good guys win in the end. So I'm just going with karma. That's my trading philosophy. What are your initial thoughts on that one?
I think it's pretty crazy. Do you actually believe that?
Yeah, I really do. I just feel like it's going to all work out in the end. I mean, I'm a big subscriber to this concept of it's a simulation and whatever. The people who programmed my like particular chapter, I think they're like more happy-go-lucky type of fellas. So I'm just trusting in karma and like it's going to work out in the end. I'm like blowing.
You're bigger degenerate than I thought. You got a.
Dude, I'm literally wearing my degen shirt. You got to rep it. That's the market.
I know some pharmaceuticals you may be interested in at this point. That's the only hope, I think.
I think it's going to work out. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. So with yours, obviously, I guess a big thing we're talking about this trading and investing. Obviously, there has to be some whatever Wall Street stuff related punishment from like what happened with you. Can you actively trade in the market? Like, do you plan on trading?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have some restrictions, but pretty minor.
All right. Are you allowed to YOLO? Like, is that against the?
Yeah, absolutely. I can YOLO.
Chat, I think we're not that far from getting Martin Shkreli to YOLO into one of our favorite stocks. I feel like we're on the edge. We just need one good reasoning to get you over the edge.
I'll YOLO. It's no problem. I mean, it depends on the situation, but YOLO is different for everyone. Like for some people, going all in on one stock is not even a YOLO, but for other people, that's a massive YOLO.
Yes.
For some people, like being 5x leveraged is not a YOLO. For other people, any leverage at all is YOLO. So like, it all depends on who you are. Like for me, buying AMC at all is kind of a YOLO. But I'm like willing to do it. I'm kind of starting to get pretty convinced that it's not a terrible investment. Again, I'm certain I'm going to be on it. I'd be nervous, but I want to do it for the apes. I want to do it for WSB. I was one of the first guys in WSB. I am a little guy. I'm an Albanian immigrant from Brooklyn, who started with nothing and made millions and millions of dollars. So, like I have kinship. Like I made it out of the hood and made it tree where I wasn't supposed to be there. I went to City College. I'm not a Harvard, Yale guy. I worked really hard for what I got. So I vibe much more with apes than I do with hedge fund guys. I talk to hedge fund guys, I worked at hedge funds, but like I never fit in with hedge fund people because I'm not an elitist at all. I believe in like a person on the street can do the job of an elitist, sometimes better, quite often better. I really don't like the arrogance of elitists. Like these are the same guys who like blow up and lose $1 billion and still be like, oh, well, I know what I'm doing. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like you lost $1 billion. Like why should anybody give you a job? And there are people who are like sit from home and make 20, 30% a year. So like I vibe with it, but I just don't want to make a bad investment. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff at the end of the day, like I still want to make good investments that are prudent. So I saw you were doing some trading the other day or the other week. Somebody sent it to me and that's actually how we hooked up. Somebody was bragging about some some gains you had.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess for a little bit of clarification, yes, I have a long-term account, but then just for this world of like streaming, and it's fun with chat. I like to do more of the degenerate, but it's obviously I'm not like I have various accounts, but I don't quite know which one you're referring to. So every single morning, I ask chat, is the market going to be red or green? And I'll go for like 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 on the futures market. Like whatever they vote, I just go with that trade. But on Friday, I had blown up a $10,000 account, so I refunded it with $10,000. And someone in chat bet me I wouldn't YOLO at all. So I took all 10,000. It was 10,000. I had 10,300 on Thursday of last week. And because of options, I only had 10,200. So I bet that all in. Or it was 10,200 in options bet. And then the market did really well on Friday. And it was heartbreaking. I was going for 50K. And then I got it up to 49.7 because I couldn't do math in real time because I was all jacked up. And I locked it in like a second too early. And then I quickly tried to trade between like 4 and 415 when like the futures market is doing something. And then I lost like another 700. So I locked in 49K.
Pretty good
but
trade.
That's what I'm telling. Like, I mean, before, I have to admit, before you were like a little skeptical about my karma, man, but I feel like it worked. Like I would say that my luck and my karma like is what gave me 50K.
Like, you think you're good at this, man? What are you?
I mean, I think just lucky. Like I'm gonna go with like I didn't make the saying up, but it's literally like fortune favors the bold, and I think that's all it is. Like that.
Oh my god!
I think that's what you need in the market is fortune favors the bold. I thought I'd honestly get a little bit more. Like you're an OG Wall Street bets. I think you'd be dude.
I think you're nuts. I mean, I make my money carefully and intelligently. I'm not always right, but I'm like very like you're rolling the dice.
All right. I think the only way for me to prove it, I said that with 10,000, I'll do it. I will do. I don't know if you're willing to do it, but I'll do a $10,000. I'll do a 10,000 trade. Like the account I made was 10K. So I'll see if I could do it again. I'll do like a 10,000 versus you 10,000.
Whoa. You're not suggesting that you want to like compete with me?
Yeah. I mean, I think your way is just like kind of boring. Like I feel like people would be like, Matt not only beat this guy who thinks he knows about Wall Street and pharma, like I'll just go on pure luck. I'll go pure degenerate. And I think my 10,000 would be better than your 10,000.
I mean, my mind is so blown right now. I don't even understand what you're saying. Like you want to, first of all, 10,000.
Okay. We'll do like 10 to 20. Like I think I can turn 10K into 20K more than you can. Because I think yours is going to be boring and slow.
I think you're crazy. I think you're an idiot for saying that. I think that you're not a pro. You don't know what you're doing. There's no way you could beat me in any trading competition. I don't care how much money it is. But because you got the guts to say it, let's at least, 10 grand isn't enough because pattern day. Let's do 25 just to get to the pattern day trading. I'll take it easy on you. 25K, you and me, we'll post all our trades up so everybody can see. But, I'm going to embarrass. Like you're going to be, I hope you're going to still have subscribers left. I'm sorry.
All right. A couple of things. First of all, I thought this would actually go like, I didn't think you were going to do it. So that was a little bit out of surprise. I see what you're saying.
It's a waste of my time, 25 grand, but just to step on you and crush your spirits and soul, I will do it.
I really didn't think you'd accept the 10. I was just kind of being an asshole. So now I'm a little bit embarrassed, but I do agree with you. I'm not a pro. I don't know what I'm doing, but I still think that like fortune favors the bold. Like I really think I'm going to win. I was willing to do 10, but now I don't know. You have more money than I do. Okay. Okay. Well, no, fuck that. Okay. All right. Here's a crazy idea. Like I said, fortune favors the bold. I'm wearing the degenerate shirt. I made 50K on Friday. No, just because you think you know about the market and have more money, 50K. I bet 50K. I bet I could turn 50K into 100K before you can.
All right, you're on. I mean, I think you're going to turn 50K to 0K probably, but we'll have to see how it goes. So, I got 50K sitting around, and we'll have a trade-off. I mean, stupid. We got to set it up somewhere so that everybody can see. I don't know if we can do that, but everybody can see your trades, your garbage retardo trades and my real sophisticated, intelligent, professional trades going up and your shit going down because you're a clown. And we can see how easily and how professionally I can do this. And I do this for the apes, and I'm going to buy AMC in the account. And I don't know if I'm going to double it that fast, but I'm going to try. I mean, at the very least, I mean, if you're going to YOLO and just like go all in on green, okay, whatever. I'm not going to feel embarrassed if you happen to win and flip a coin, but you're going to see me do it with style, with the fresh style that I have. And, if you want to just gamble on SPY options, you can do that, but I'm not going to do that. So open up a website, open up like some kind of place where we can go trade. I use Interactive Brokers, so I'll post it and we can stream it. And, again, I think, you come for the king, you might as well, aim for the head. So, good luck.
The best part of this is that money I made is actually what made my trading account green on the year. Like my active day trades that I'm going to go back red on this. Well, I will be getting the last laugh when I win. I just don't think everyone...
Careful what you wish for.
This will be interesting. All right. So we'll set up the details so people know, like, I think this does need a little bit more structure for everyone so people can properly trade it. But I just think I'm of the opinion that everyone thinks they know about Wall Street. And there's all this like great way, like I'm a Wall Street guy. I know how to trade. I know how to make money. I think it's a casino. And I think you just have to be lucky.
If you somehow by some way, some miracle, you can beat me at trading, then God bless you. But I give you like 100 to 1 odds. So good luck.
I'll take those odds. I will take those odds. All right. So I'll talk with you and we'll set up the rules just, I guess, so people can know. Cause I don't know. Well, it has to be a little bit more than us just saying we did this or that. Like I kind of want a little public exposure just because this high risk, high reward. That's how the stock market should be.
And all your little friends and subscribers going to help you out? Is that what you're going to do? Try to like figure out what stock to buy from them and from WallStreetBets?
I have them vote every morning. I'm like, which should I do? That would be the most wild. I don't know. I have to figure out how we're going to do it, but I think. I think this is going to be so dumb. I kind of have the vibe I just lost 50K, but we'll see. I've had worse losses. I do appreciate your time. Before I let you go, there are people asking this, and I just feel free to answer it. Feel free to don't. You at one point in time bought the most expensive album, WU-TANG album, Once a Time in Shaolin. I know it was yours, and like I understand previously you don't really want to talk about it. Can you just even tell us if it was good or bad? That's it. Just good or bad.
Yeah, I got some tracks right here. Let me see if I can play some real quick. I don't want to mess up your
Wait, serious?
I also don't want to mess. Yeah.
You actually have the track?
Yeah.
Wait, are you fucking with this?
I also don't want to mess up your channel or anything, but let's see here. This is track 2, which is really solid, probably a solid track. Let's see here. Oh, I have the feedback. There we go. This is track 2 from Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. So I get a couple.
Wait, that's fucking crazy. What? Dude, my mind's blown.
So yeah, that's Method Man on track 2 of the Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. So
dude, my mind is blown that you just played that. That's insane.
Oh, I got others. I got Nirvana on these tracks. I got Beatles. I got a huge music collection. I probably had the best private music collection in the world. But Wu-Tang is nothing. But I owed the government $8 million. I paid $6 million cash. I had $2 million left to pay, and nobody knows this story. People want to just tell like this other story, but like, of course, I make MP3 copies and FLAC file copies. They're like hidden in safes all around the world. Like I'm not stupid. I don't buy something for $2 million and just fucking, keep it one copy. It's funny. My cat actually knocked the copy off the Yeah, that's YOLO right there. My cat broke the Wu-Tang album case because she got scared and just knocked it off the table. But so I paid. I had 2 million left to go, and the government was really great. They were like, "Listen, pay whenever you want. We know you've got lots of money, so the 2 million is not a big deal when you can't pay it." And then NFT mania just boomed, and I was like, "Cool, this is great. I can sell this crappy album. I thought it was worth 500 grand. I bought it for 1.5. So I was like, this is worth 500 grand at most. So let me sell this thing as an NFT or to a crypto bro or whatever and get out of this losing trade because I bought it for 1.5, hoping I could sell it for more. I was like, if I can get 1.5 for it, I'm happy. And I'll just pay the government. And that way I don't have to sell any of my other stocks or whatever. So all of a sudden my buddy, who's a crypto bro, is like, listen, I'll take it off your hands for 2 mil and I'll hold it for you. So it's still like ours. So like, you don't have to feel like you sold it and nobody has to worry about it. And I was like, cool, dude. And what I didn't know is another person contacted the government at the same time and said, I want to buy the album too. And so when my lawyer said, do you authorize us to sell this album to your friend? I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. They sold it to the other dude and they sold it for 2.4. So I made about 800 grand on it. I was happy about that. But when I found out it wasn't my friend buying it, I was livid. I was like, who actually bought this thing? This is crazy. And it turns out it was this Pleaser DAO group who paid 4 million for it, which is really crazy. That's an absurd number. It's not worth anything. And the joke is kind of on them that they bought this thing without even figuring out if the MP3s are still floating around or not, which is like, talk about YOLO. That's a stupid trade. So I still have the MP3s. I don't know what I'll do with them necessarily. You heard a snippet of song 2. It's a double album. But again, like this whole, like, it just goes to show you like all this narrative is like, all these narratives are bullshit. One guy was like trolling me. He's like, now you can't hear the Wu-Tang album anymore, Martin. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, just, people are so certain and sure of themselves. That's kind of, I guess, why you made your bet with me, right? Like, people are so sure of themselves that they know everything and then they get embarrassed. So maybe I'm about to get embarrassed with this trading competition. Geez, I'm starting to wonder, but nah, I'm not going to lose.
I truly feel like I'm absurdly lucky. So we'll put your fancy quant fundamental breakdowns against my just YOLO luck and we'll see how it goes. But the Wu-Tang thing, that's crazy. I just assumed part of it was the rules were that like it had to be a single copy. And apparently they assumed that too, because they never just asked, are there copies?
Try not to make too many assumptions when I spend $4 million on things. I double check and, that's how I do $4 million deals. But apparently there are YOLO words out there on music apps too. So I got to run. So I appreciate it.
Yes. Definitely appreciate your time. We'll hammer out the details, I suppose, of people watching you lose to me, and we'll cover that all later. But once again, thank you very much for your time, and we'll be talking soon. But have a good one.